my name is Dr. Maya Byfield. My business is the Phenomenal STEMist. I'm so excited to be here in Orange County because it's where I live. I live in Apopka, Florida. And I decided to make this business because I saw a need for underrepresented students to be successful in STEM, which stands for science, technology, engineering, math. And the best way I can do that is just provide products for parents to prepare them, whether it's a book or online STEM camps or just video podcasting. My goal is to transform this community, especially those who are underrepresented. And the way to do that is to help parents understand their children's minds and basically develop them at different stages of their lives to be prepared for a successful STEM career. Thank you so much. That's why I'm here. Good evening, everyone. It's the Phenomenal STEMist. I'm so excited for today's interview. It is May, you guys. May is my birthday month, but it's also mental health month, and I couldn't have anybody greater than Dr. Ricardo J. White. How are you doing, Dr. White?
I'm doing very well. I'm so honored to be on your program, Dr. Byfield, and just want to say happy birthday to you. In anticipation of your birthday.
Yeah, a week from today, I will be turning over 45. And it's an experience, I must say, but I'm enjoying the month of May so far. And as I said before, it's not only my birthday month, but it is also mental health month. And Dr. White has a degree. I'm assuming in biology. What did you get your degree at Atlantic Union College?
I did my undergrad in biochemistry.
Biochemistry, and pre-med obviously, and he went on to University of Connecticut Medical School where he completed his MD degree, and then he went on to Loma Linda University in California to complete his residency in psychiatry, and he also went to UCLA to get specialized in addictions. What did you do at UCLA?
Addiction psychiatry.
Specifically addiction psychiatry. He is the founder of, oh, I just lost it.
The Mastermind Institute.
The Mastermind Institute, the founder of the Mastermind Institute. I am so grateful. Today we're talking about how to become a psychiatrist. This is, if you know Phenomenal STEMist, the goal is to really, really empower students of color to see modeling, and you are an excellent model. Probably one of the few psychiatrists out there as African American males, I can imagine. So thanks again for being on the show.
Absolutely. I guess if out of 100 psychiatrists, about 5 of them would be black.
Black, period. Black, female or male, correct?
Correct.
Yeah, 5 out of 100. Wow, that's so. So there might be somebody out there that's interested in medicine, specifically the field of psychiatry, and I'm glad that you're here. So let's jump right into the interview. When did you fall in love with your discipline?
I fell in love with my discipline in medical school. I remember prior to med school, we would watch movies, and the psychiatrist was always a dapper don, well dressed, you know, big desk, a nice office, and seeing important people, and all this kind of stuff. And I mean, I can't lie, it kind of piqued my interest. Then in med school, I was thinking about either something surgical or psych. And I remember rotation after rotation, you know, it was tolerable because I wouldn't have to do that thing for the rest of my life.
Yeah. So like is it 3 months of rotation in the different
Or
fields?
1 month or something, it varied, but you know, whether you're working with the diabetic foot or, you know, all these things, it's like it just didn't appeal to me
Yeah.
until I got to psychiatry. So in terms of where did I fall in love with it, it would be in medical school.
Yeah. So when I think about psychiatry, I think about mental health, and I couldn't imagine falling in love with it as a child. Most children want to be pediatricians as the child because that's who they see. You know, like I want to be a doctor. I want to be a pediatrician. But like you said, it's when you start rotating. Most of my friends, when they were pre med, wanted to be pediatricians, and then when they rotated, they said, "Oh, it's actually sick children. I like babies, but not sick babies." So actually, I want to do something else. So you rotated after rotated after rotated in different things and said psychiatry is for you. Like, what was it?
Well, what's super fascinating about psychiatry is it sits at the crossroad at
Hmm.
so many of the things that I really love. So whether it's philosophy, whether it's psychology, um, the neurobiology,
Yeah.
one of the things I loved, you talk about a STEM program. One of the beautiful things about the hard sciences is to some degree, it eliminates the subjectivity.
Yeah.
I decide if I get an A, not somebody else. I mean, obviously, people still grade you, but no, 1 + 1 = 1.
Two.
I mean,
Two.
this video about 1 + 1 is more, but 1 + 1 is 2. You know, and it's like we can't really debate that. But so it's just concrete. It's just a bit more. So I like that element of it. So biochemistry, neurobiology, spirituality,
Mm.
even and of course biochemistry. I mean, so it sits at the crossroads of so many of the things that I really love. And ultimately it comes down to the power of words. it
Yeah.
is it is unbelievable how you can help a person craft a new future for themselves just with the power of words. So that to me is what has sustained and supported my love affair with psychiatry.
Love it. Love it. Okay. So, what tools did you use to discipline yourself to succeed? And this can be in any level of education, college, med school.
In medical school, collaborating with peers was critical in terms of talking about the subject matter, seeing how they understood the subject matter, finding out from them what worked, studying together at times. That was an important tool. Timers, I find to be very helpful in helping you focus. And know that, okay, well, on the other side of this, I'm going to have completed the assignment. It's a constant reminder to stay focused. So timers is something that I've found incredibly helpful.
Like a literal timer, like beep beep, like time yourself. What do you mean?
Literal timer. A lot of the timers that you can find on the iPhone. So
Yeah.
um, if you're studying, it's nice to know I just have to be super focused for the next 30 minutes. And after that, I've got a prize coming or something like that. Now you remove that timer, you don't have that visual reinforcer that, oh, that's right, there's something going on. Or it's just kind of vague. When does this suffering end? you know, but a timer tells you, no, you've got another 15 minutes. Okay, now you're down to 5 minutes. Okay, now so it's funny that as you go along, the focus can actually intensify as you recognize that, oh, I'm about to run out of time. So
Mm-hmm.
I found that to be a super helpful tool. Surrounding myself with friends who identified with having goals and meaningful goals. So you don't have to explain yourself when you say, I can't go out Friday night or Saturday night, what have you. There's no explanation, and in fact, they might be telling you, "Hey, I can't go out." It's really cool to have friends that are heading down the same path you're heading down. So those are some of the tools that really, help me. Obviously, I'm a believer, so that spirituality is an important factor. Regardless of what, life rarely goes your way all the time.
Yeah.
And it can be very helpful then to have a process that helps remind you, and it doesn't have to. And there's a process to rebuild, regroup, and keep moving forward. Also, that bigger picture, spirituality kind of gives you that bigger picture that helps you understand your why, and your why is just super huge. So spirituality is a huge tool that helped me in terms of progressing through the various stages.
You talked about spirituality as a part of the reason why you chose psychiatry. Like, there's a role in spirituality in medicine, in the mind, because the mind is deeper than the conscious level. Most of the mind is subconscious, and there's emotions, and there's spirituality involved in it. So it sounds like you uh, were very disciplined in your spirituality when you were younger, and it really carried you through. I resonate with that, because I literally felt the same way. Like, God carried me through. I There was a higher power, there was someone that knew beyond what I understood, and it was critical for my own sanity, in the context of making it through very difficult periods like biochemistry 1 and 2.
And I'm glad you clarified, because I'm not talking about the universe. I'm not talking about a higher power. I'm talking about God.
God.
I'm talking about the all powerful God, at least from my perspective, and I don't want to be vague in
Yeah.
terms of where I'm coming from. And I grew up in Brooklyn, New York. In
I am from Queens.
Okay, well, nobody's perfect, but that's pretty close though. I'm just messing around. I'm just messing around. Yes, yes, another one of the boroughs. Absolutely. But I grew up in Brooklyn in the 1980s, and you and I both know our communities were ravaged by, and not just any drug, crack cocaine
Crack cocaine.
specifically. And you imagine being in that setting, two young boys, my brother and I, with a single parent mom. Spirituality played a huge role in giving our family structure, in helping us to see what we could be, as we would look at some of the men in the congregation. It changed the game for you. We were influenced by people going on to school. In Seventh Day Adventism, it is a given that you're going to school.
Yeah.
It's just expensive. It's just expected, and that kind of influence was incredibly helpful. And so that's the reason I'm more concrete when I say it wasn't a higher power. It was God. That's why I'm just concrete. I wouldn't want to not be clear about what it is I'm talking about.
Yeah, yeah. It was God who led me all the way. Guided me, and just like he guided me, he guided you, and to help you in your success. So it's really honorable that you give honor to God, on top of the different tools, like the timer. That's a good practical tool too. A timer to time. Yeah, like I always tell my students, half hour, half hour, half hour. Don't like flood your mind. Take breaks, and a timer will help in that. That's awesome. Okay, so what were your challenges? What were your challenges in school?
When in the settings that I studied, so when I was in Brooklyn, New York,
Hmm.
I was in top tiered schools. Whether it was in grammar schools, I would be pushed towards the intelligently gifted classes. I remember going to Sarah Garnett 324. That was a top middle school at the time. And one of the cool things were we were dominant because the teachers looked like us, my peers looked like me, and so it was very nurturing to be just clear. We then moved from there to Connecticut, where it was not the same. There wasn't the preponderance of teachers who looked like you, and it makes a difference. There's studies that document that a teacher's regard for you will impact your outcome.
That's right.
There's studies documenting that. And I remember in New York in particular, teachers who they would invest in you greatly, and they would pour into you and let you know that their expectations were that they expected you to be academically dominant. And even when I went to Connecticut, now what's profound about this was not my guidance counselor. This was
Hmm.
not my guidance. Her name was Dr. Delilah Henry. I can still remember her to this. I'm not her student, but she pulls me aside and she's like, "Look, there is a pre-med program at the University of Connecticut that I want you to apply for." And it was interesting because I'm in Waterbury, Connecticut, and we're talking about trying to get to Farmington, Connecticut, and my actual site was Newington, Connecticut. So this is just really far from my home. Obviously, I'm not driving at the time.
You're in high school?
I'm in high school.
Hmm.
And so I was like, I didn't think another thing of it. And then she bumped into me, and again, she was like, "Hey, did you apply for that program?" I was like, "I don't have any transportation." And she said, "Ricardo, sometimes in life, you just have to make it happen." And, I thought to myself, she's crazy. No, no, I didn't think that. But like now it was like, well, let me explore how this could possibly work. How could this possibly work? The way it would finally work is I would have to wake up 5:30, maybe earlier, get a bus from where I was in Waterbury to downtown Waterbury, then get on a charter bus from downtown Waterbury up to downtown Hartford, then get a city bus from downtown Hartford to Newington, where my site was, and then at the end of the day, do it all over again.
Mm.
And I did that for the summer. Whatever little stipend I was getting pretty much went into
My
transportation.
travel. Yeah.
Went into travel, but that's what began a relationship that ultimately would evolve into me now being an alumnus of the School of Medicine of Connecticut, home of the Huskies. So the bottom line being, and she took interest in me. Again, I wasn't her student, I wasn't her pupil, but she took interest and made that investment. And of course, she was a person of color. So, it all along, it does make a difference. It definitely does make a difference. And so to this day, I will always have to tip my hat off to Dr. Delilah Henry, a guidance counselor at John F. Kennedy High School at the time, if I'm not mistaken.
So this was somebody who took interest in you and pushed you. Are you saying that the challenges that you had were that there were not a lot of people
Yeah,
that
exactly. Thanks for getting back to that. So when you're in settings where that's like you're in the minority, it's the most shocking thing to see how relational,
yeah.
how
It is.
a determining factor for success is relationships.
It is.
Relationships with your peers, or relationships with your professors, or relationships with the people that you're applying to programs for. Your ability to garner and inspire people to connect with you and decide, I want to support you, that's a determining factor in your success. So it is ridiculous to not recognize the challenge a person's going to have when they're not working in a setting where people naturally look like you, and therefore they might not identify with you as easily. And even when they're not actively interfering with your success, it just makes a huge difference when people have an inspiration that, you remind me of my nephew, or you remind me of my son or my daughter or my uncle or my, like, when that is a powerful factor. That's an incredibly powerful factor. And when it's not present, it does make a difference. Now I definitely, to your listening audience, we can't, excuses do not feed our children. Okay. And our excuses do not in any way substantiate our dreams. Like that guidance counselor said to me, sometimes you just have to make it happen. But it's also important to acknowledge sometimes there are challenges. And man, what I would love for your audience to recognize is, when you get inspired to pour into a person, when you get inspired to help a person, it can make a tremendous difference. It can make an absolute difference. So when that opportunity presents itself and the stars align where you can, just know that impact can be profound. So part of the influence of that guidance counselor, I've seen literally tens of thousands of patients that she kind of helped make happen. Never mind, obviously, the professors that I've encountered subsequently and the people who trained me. But I just mean, what a difference you can make.
And to go back to this concept of God, I really, really believe that God provides someone in the midst of the challenge to empower.
Absolutely.
When everybody's trying to hold you back, I've experienced it myself. God will send someone and lift you up. Even like it will happen if it's meant to be. You just have to keep fighting and pushing through. We say in the high schools, in the elementary schools in New York, they saw this. 90% of teachers in the public school system are Caucasian women.
Wow.
Right? 90%.
Wow.
And if imagine the implicit biases that are there, especially towards young Black men. You see the school to prison pipeline. You see the infractions comparable to their white counterparts, but Black boys are getting kicked out of the classes at significantly more levels. That has something to do with it, but you can't. It's a challenge. It's a challenge that we must fight against and acknowledge. But I know that there's a way out. There's a way out.
And you gotta find a way out. So one way or another, you stay at it. You don't give up. Another challenge was financial. So I remember being at times in med school, and you have an exam to take, but your car is breaking down, or you're worried about, hey, how are you going to pay rent, and how am I going to explain this to my roommates, and will they be understanding it? You having to deal with these kind of pressures. So it was kind of shocking to see how finances would play in what should be an academic venture. Well, no, there's a significant financial piece. So I would say those are some of the challenges that you just have to struggle through. But gotta make it happen.
So what I'm hearing is there are multiple challenges, but you gotta make it happen. You gotta make it happen.
No question. Yeah.
Okay, so tell me about your line of work and the way you can tell me your line of work. And I have a question out here from my number one fan. I see a couple of people watching. So guys, if you're watching, feel free to comment, put your question in the chat. But my mom, this is she's the reason why she's the reason why we connected, because y'all were sitting next to each other at alumni weekend a month ago.
Absolutely.
Her question is, you know, in your field, why do you need an MD? So you can answer that a little later in your answers. But tell me what you do. Um, Specifically, like, what's your typical day in your line of work, and like talk to me a little bit about your institute.
Sure, sure. So I'll start with what do I do as a psychiatrist? So I'm the section chief of psychiatry at a community hospital here in Southern California. And as the section chief, I am part administrator and definitely very clinical as well. So I'm over so the entire service is 74 beds. And so my partners and I, we of course divide that up amongst us. And so I will see my set number of patients, and I'm presiding over a treatment team. So which is going to consist of a nurse, a social worker, and there, of course, people who are kind of working behind the scenes. So it might be a pharmacist, so on and so forth. Never mind the technicians that are on the floor with the patients. But that entire team is working together to help a person who may have been suicidal or who may have come in intoxicated with drugs, and things have progressed to where now they're experiencing what we call psychosis, and that is they're having trouble distinguishing between what's real and what's not real. And so we're providing a setting that will keep them safe and get them back to baseline. So the question was, hey, why do you need a medical doctorate? Because we're prescribing medications, we call them psychotropics, that affect the mind. And so we of course have to understand how the body is going to process those medications. We also need to know how the drugs that they may have taken are impacting their body, and our understanding of their bodies, what's going to help us practice safely. One of the things about psychiatry is because we were trained in medical school, it of course allows us to effectively communicate with other members of the medical team. Because psychiatric conditions can arise in a hospital setting, and we have to communicate with our colleagues so that we can understand, okay, well, this is what it is that we're recommending. We can understand what's happening, and we can distinguish and say, well, it actually might be a medical issue that's leading to this change in their mental state. Or no, actually, this is a primary disorder that still needs to be managed, even though you're still addressing the medical issues.
Right.
So that's the level of complexity that we have to deal with, that being trained with formal medical training allows us to navigate effectively.
Okay, so that's a great way of answering why you need a MD. So you not only are a founder of the Mastermind Institute, you actually are not training. You are a physician in a hospital, taking care of patients as well. When you think, so it's funny when you said, not funny. It's interesting when you said psychosis. You perfectly, I never really understood what it meant, which I like how you said it's like you're having an issue with understanding what's real versus unreal. And do you deal with patients who are in psychosis, like, or in crisis? That's when psychiatrists really step in versus a psychologist. Psychologists don't really see a lot of people in crisis as much.
Psychologists may deal with people in crisis. In a hospital setting,
Mhm,
typically, especially in a psych ward,
mhm,
typically today you're gonna generally see psychiatrists managing the inpatient setting. Um, so where are psychologists helpful? So psychologists in particular, they are well known for psychological testing. And
mhm,
so so they can be very helpful in really kind of refining what exactly is going on here. They'll design a battery of tests to identify what might be the issue, and then of course that will inform, okay, well, how might we want to approach working with that given diagnosis. What else? You also asked the question, what is it like a day in the life? So
Yeah.
the life, you land on, the unit, and you work with the team to see your allotment of patients. Each patient, you are doing an assessment, you making a number of recommendations, convincing that patient as far as what it is they'll agree to, what they won't, and
Mhm.
then you kind of now implement that plan with the use of the team. And so now by the conclusion of that, a lot of times by midday, I'll have administrative meetings. So whether it's credentialing or pharmacy and therapeutics, or you might even have the med exec committee. So the administrative role is where you have those meetings. And then you also have to then chart on what it is that you did,
Did that day. Hmm.
and, in terms of the patients that you saw. And so that is kind of a typical workflow um, for me. An additional piece is when you have to do some consult liaison. And so that's where I mentioned psychiatric issues can occur in the acute care setting of the hospital. And so our colleagues will then say, hey, can you help us understand what's the diagnosis? What do you recommend as a medication? Or does this patient have decision-making capacity? Those are some of the kind of questions that we will get, that we then have to assess the patient, and whoever else we need to talk to, then come to a recommendation to that primary medical team.
Okay, so tell me a little bit about your institute, the Mastermind Institute.
So the Mastermind Institute is what I co-founded with my co-founder, Dr. Cerny Walazonia, who, by the way, is a neuropsychologist, a clinical neuropsychologist.
Okay.
And it was born from our mutual passion to take the benefits of mental health into a preventive mode and
Right.
outside of just a one-on-one setting, and see, hey, can we scale that benefit to populations? So what we identified was that when you look at a person, there are 7 vital areas of their life, 7 vital areas. And we find people rarely are even aware of the 7 vital areas of their lives. And with not being aware of it, then they cannot plan intently in implementing strategies that will optimize their well-being. So we established a platform called Killing Burnout. And so you're seeing the book right now that we recently published, Killing Burnout, Mastering the Art of Resilience. And what this basically argues is that when you strategize effectively in those 7 vital areas, this is how you kill burnout.
Mm.
Part of what inspired this was when we work in our setting, like next to me, I'll have a nurse come up and say, hey, I'm having this problem in my family, or, this, that, the other thing. And we are working in stressful settings, and we're not alone in healthcare. It's, there is a tremendous amount of factors that come to bear as a person is trying to do their job. And we recognize that people get trained for the hard skills that they need for their job, but they
Right.
don't get as much support with the soft skills,
So
which is a tremendously important determining factor in how well you're going to do your job. So we designed a digital training that we call the Killing Burnout System for Peak Performance. And we are in the process of working on making that available to both workforce, so in a corporate setting, or people who individually want to say, hey, I would love to work on my soft skills. I want to make sure that I am strategizing effectively, taking into account the 7 vital areas of my life. And I know I can't balance them all simultaneously, but I know that much like a symphony, I can make sure that I'm focused on the right thing at the right time.
Awesome, because you could have all the hard skills and learn all the STEM and the math and that you need to be successful. But if you're not resilient, you'll quit early. And so I love that you are incorporating wholeness. I saw something here. It says the organic parts of our physical system is part and parcel of our emotional, spiritual, and mental processes. It's a combination of it all. And so wholeness is how you're successful. And so I'm glad that your institute is incorporating that. So last question.
Absolutely.
What are your challenges? And then what are your favorite parts of your career? So start off with challenges.
The challenging parts have been, for example, a managed care and the battle involved in, you've seen a patient, you provided the care, and now the inordinate measures you have to go through to prove that you've done this in order to be reimbursed. That system is definitely onerous. And just to put it in perspective, imagine if you had a restaurant and rather than just having a cashier that would accept payment, you had to have another business that was just in charge of collecting fees.
Right.
Well, that's modern medicine today. I mean, you can see the almost automatic unfairness of it. So that's definitely a major challenge in practicing today. My favorite part of my career is that moment you get when you see that your intervention is benefiting a patient and they recognize it.
Mm.
That's magical. You said, hey, when did you fall in love with your discipline? And I remember in medical school, before you getting into the room, there might be a conflict over getting the chart. There might be this problem, that problem. But once you got in front of that patient and you could focus on their issue and start working on getting to a solution, nothing else mattered. It's like all the obstacles kind of melted away. That's the highlight of the day. That's when the intervention is working, the patient recognizes it and they're grateful for it meaningfully. That's as good as it gets.
Wow, this has been. I'm hearing challenges for medicine, uh, commonly throughout. Like I've interviewed OBGYNs, peds, adult pediatricians. I'm like meaning not adult, but adolescent pediatricians, and they all say the business of medicine is getting in the way of the patient. The business in that's the major challenge. And to me, to be honest, when I thought of a challenge, like me, just a regular old professor of biology, I I am amazed that you can stand in the midst of somebody being in psychosis, right? Like psychosis kind of frightens me. um how are you not frightened, but rather it's actually a favorite part where you can stand in the midst of somebody in psychosis, you can implement a plan and they are transformed and healing takes place. And how do you get past the
Well, it's interesting because and this is a message to the viewership.
Mhm.
Like all of life is about garnering the skill to solve a problem.
Yeah.
That's like to be meaningfully equipped with how to deal with a problem
Yeah.
so that you can be presented with a challenging situation, you can recognize the challenge, but you're equipped to handle it. It's similar to, I gather you're a biology professor.
Yes, I'm a biology professor.
And so it's just as easy to say, man, how do you deal with, having to get these minds, passionate about the subject and having them focus, and you're just like, no, it's no, that's what I was trained to do. I mean, so
Yeah.
that's the reason for the 4 years of, medical school at minimum, and 4 years of psychiatry and fellowship, and all the patients that you've seen along that. And then now it's been about 20 years in practice, so that, you see it over and over and over again. Um, and all along the way, your practice kind of evolves, and so that you can deal with these issues, but you're trained for it.
Wow. You train for it. You train for it. And that is a critical piece, and a promotion of education. Things are difficult, problems are difficult to solve. So seek training to solve these problems. And over time it'll, wow, yeah, it'll be just like I've been 20 years teaching biology students of multiple generations. And you're right, it's about what you've been doing your whole life.
I mean, but like, because it's so profound what you're saying, because it hopefully it's teaching the kids, like, don't run from the challenge.
Yeah, don't run from
You know,
challenge.
don't run from the challenge, because it's equipping you. I was at a function yesterday where we were celebrating medical students in various phases of training, but especially those that now were graduating from medical school and going on. And so this is our chance to kind of give them a word or two of, hey, here's what's coming. But the idea was just, the very thing you revile right now in terms of the difficulty and the challenge is honing you,
Wow.
honing you.
It's equipping you.
It's equipping you. It's like, so that there is a future where you are going to meet like some challenging circumstances that, thanks to your past, you won't even view as challenging.
Wow.
Others will be looking at you like, hey, how can you handle that?
Yeah.
Because of what I've endured in my past.
Yeah.
I've been built for this at this point.
Wow.
So yeah, don't, it's not, yeah, don't be afraid of that. And I'm not saying to not nurture yourself and take care of yourself and support your resilience, but understand that that pain has a purpose. It has a purpose. It is preparing you for a situation that others will have to like shy away from, but you'll be like, hey, my past has prepared me for this situation. I got you.
That's powerful. Your words are like just empowering me based on something that I've been hearing all day, right? So today, this morning, I heard about the concept of the butterfly, the caterpillar in the cocoon. It developed into a butterfly. It was trying to get out of the cocoon, but it was trying so hard to get out the cocoon. So somebody decided to help it out of the cocoon by cutting the cocoon a little bit so it can easily come out. And moments after, that butterfly died because the process of leaving the cocoon, that very child, I heard this morning. It's speaking to me, because it said that the process of leaving the cocoon removes certain types of liquid out of its wings, strengthens the muscles of its wings, so by the time it can get out the cocoon, it can fly easy. The process of leaving the cocoon has to happen. That hard, challenging process has to happen. You cannot make it easy for the butterfly, because if you make it easy for the butterfly, it will die.
That's a powerful analogy. And let's balance it. Let's balance it because by the same token, there was a toxicity in training at times where it didn't need to be that malignant. Like
Right.
it didn't need to be that malignant. I mean, like medicine and some of the other disciplines are sometimes accused of eating their young. So as young people, you definitely want to advocate for yourself and set limits and definitely speak to us, speak to your pain and we want to be fair. We want a training that makes good doctors. We don't want a training that toxifies medicine and and makes bad doctors basically, or you can't even finish the process because it's just so malignant. No, that's definitely not what we're championing. But I think sometimes when you're going through something difficult, it can be helpful to remember this pain has a purpose. And especially when you're talking about the stems, it's like, no, you're right or you're wrong. And it can be challenging. Well, it has a purpose. It has a purpose, and it really equips you to do some pretty amazing things. When you talk about engineers today or those working in science, and you see the breakthroughs, the magic that we can introduce through this world as a result of what happens in those disciplines, the pain has a purpose. So you can do it. Keep going.
And make it happen.
Make it happen.
Make it happen. Make it happen. If you have to take 5 buses, make
Make
it
it happen.
happen.
Shout out to your mom, man. She was helping me defend the seats for my daughter, who gave me the impossible task of protecting her and preserving a seat for like her and 5 of her friends. And your mom was helping me, so that's why we're having this interview. She was all like speaking on you and everything. I was like, hey, maybe we should connect. So
Absolutely.
awesome.
My mom is loyal. My mom will, if you give her a task,
oh man,
she will make that task happen.
help me that day, man. So
Yeah.
shout out to her.
Thank you so much for this interview. You guys who have watched, I hope this has really helped you and inspired you. It has inspired me. So I'm the phenomenal STEMist, and so is he. Thank you so much, Dr. Whyte. I really, really appreciate it.
My pleasure. All the best. Thank you for what you're doing.
Thank you. Good night, everybody.